Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for being here with me today. Whenever you show up, nice to have you joining, and thank you again for subscribing if you resonate with the content that I share on my channel, Art of Sacred Embodiment. So everything that I work with has to do in some way, shape, and form with our embodying our higher, truer soul presencing our divinity and walking it down through the sacred vessel that is our body onto this planet. And then simultaneously, the more of us that do that, the more the frequency rises on this planet. So there is a merging and marrying that is taking place more exponentially, particularly since we hit 2025, and now we have Aries moving pretty solidly, pretty strongly. And so, that's a lot of go time. And today what I wanted to talk about was containers. So in the last video that I did for the April themes, one of the things that I was bullet pointing had to do with sacred containers. And I wanted to share more about this in a couple different ways. One way to help us to understand and help any of you to understand, if this lands for you, how we're able to move through these next phases and stages of our development in a much more grounded, clear, and held way. The second way that I want to talk about this is creating the collective containers for deeper intentional work with specific teachings, which is what we've been doing the last, since I guess the start of this year. So when I'm talking about containers, what I've been getting is sort of these downloads and visuals that we have the ability to create intentional containers that support whatever it is that we are, let's say, interacting with or co-creating. Now, our body, right, is a sacred container. It is a sacred vessel and vehicle that holds and carries our soul presence and our personality and carries forth whatever blueprint codes we're activating of our true design. Now, they're inside, they're outside. We could say that our soul becomes the vehicle and vessel for our body as well. And the way that I want to talk about this, just to keep it really simple, is as we continue to develop, come into higher frequency, come into more coherence, that becomes the case. But as we're working up to that, it is this physical body, this physical container, that is a sacred vessel that holds our divine technology that allows us to upgrade so that we can hold more frequencies. All right? Now, the information that I've been getting is that we can start extending our own container creations. And these containers, when we work with them intentionally, when we have, say for instance, something really important that we're wanting to be contemplating a circumstance or situation that we are wanting to be in a higher alignment with and stay connected to our truth, we can begin to call in these sacred containers, these which are really what I start to see is they are more coherent geometrical patterns of light. And what they're able to do is to create boundary spaces around us and for us so that we can remain grounded, we can remain in our intentionality and integrity, and we can stay connected to our deeper presence and purpose. Now, this becomes a relationship, right? Most of what I work with through embodiment has everything to do with relational intimacy. It is a feminine expression of walking a path of recognizing that we are always deeply interconnected. We are always deeply in relationship, but when we bring our presence, excuse me, and intentionality to that, the intimacy begins to grow. First and foremost with ourself, secondly with the other that we are interacting with or that we are in the midst of. So let's say, for instance, to keep this simplified, is that you're going to sit and have a meditation practice. You can begin to call in the sacred container. And what that container does is it is you inviting in your own deeper presence, your own deeper connection. You are inviting in support that creates boundaries. Now, we aren't talking about hard, solid boundaries because we're talking about an energetic container that allows us to expand and can also, depending on the circumstances, allow whatever is of the highest good to permeate the container. But these containers then begin to support our coherence and introduce higher patterning that is for our highest good. Now, excuse me, when I work with all of this, for me, I work with it with light language. So that is my method of energetic work, right? My energy work that then allows my higher self-expression to start interacting and guiding the process, if that makes sense. And when we stay within our container doing whatever it is that we're doing, we're doing our meditation, this container becomes an interactive participant for and with us, right? These containers, what I'm starting to get, they hold consciousness. They hold higher consciousness. And part of this has to do with there is so much that is discordant in the world right now, as there is this, mass disheveling, dismantling, right? That's part of the awakening process. And yet, we don't have to be interacting energetically with it all. And sometimes what we need to do, not as protection, not as a shield, not creating division, but calling forth our own sovereignty. Now, let's say, for instance, you are, like myself, you are a teacher. You have offerings to share. You begin to create the container in which you are co-creating with the divine. And it supports us in getting more out of our way and allowing a specific frequency and vibration to grow around us based on our heart soul desire, based on the assistance that is coming in and the light and the patterning that is going to support us. So again, it's intentionality, it's integrity, it is soul presencing, it is grounding, and for me, the divine quality, the divine frequency that at this point in my journey I work with more is divine love. So that becomes my guide. So that becomes the guide and the consciousness that infuses then what it is that I am, what I am birthing. And I like that word birthing because there are times that we are in a container of creation that does not get birthed immediately. We might have a project that we're working on, right? And that project is a process. But every time we sit down to work with it, we call forth this container. What I tend to do is I tend to maybe put a name to the container. And I do this at night when I'm going to sleep, right? I call in my sacred container of peace and rest and deep sleep. Those are my intentions. And then I allow this container of those right frequencies and that light and that support from higher intelligence to support me in being held and relaxing and letting go into the divine. So this is really what we're doing, right? Is we're allowing the divine to hold us. We are allowing the divine to more close up and personal interact with us through our intentionality and our presencing that we are working within a specific field. So I hope all of that is making sense. So this, how did all of this start, showing itself to me? Part of how it began showing itself to me is when I realized that the container work with the collective, with groups, is feeling more and more important. And allowing us to come together within what I'm calling the journeys. And so some of you have been doing this, and thank you. I've loved, playing and journeying with you through the elemental alchemy journey, and then also this eclipse portal and spring equinox journey. So each of these are over a period of time. And the next one that we have coming up is the Essene communions, right? So these ancient prayers of life. And I'll talk more about that in another video. So that is going to be a 7-day container. If I work with private sessions, what I'm starting to do now is recognize each individual or each couple that I'm working with is provided a container. And that container becomes a co-creation of all of the energies within that are moving and transforming and being uplifted. So when I started working with this concept, concept, I suppose we could say that, during the elemental alchemy, I began really feeling this new presence that was holding this space. And at first I thought that it was up to me to hold this container over these weeks. I don't remember how many weeks it was, maybe 5 or 6 weeks. And that's when I could tell that it was shifting into a vehicle, right? So container, vehicle, vessel. These are all frequencies and expressions that I'm recognizing of in life's intelligence that support our processing. Very much like the womb, right? And the mother is a vessel and a vehicle for pregnancy that is gestating this process of growth and maturation and then eventually birth. So this is different and yet the same. And so I started recognizing, oh, I'm not doing this alone. Never are we doing it alone when we ask for help, when we start to tune in to the more subtle realms of support. So it allowed this deep grounding, and I was able to start perceiving that each element that we worked with began to have its own patterning and its own coding. And that coding and that patterning was able to be transmitted through this container or vehicle that took us from a starting point to a birthing point. It was beautiful, and I didn't quite understand yet what was happening. So I like to share with everyone the processes, right? Even of, my own lived experience, in hopes that then, A, we see that we're always in process, and B, that you can take and then try on for size in your way of direct experience. You can begin to explore and feel into, how does this apply for you? Does it apply for you? Is it resonant with you? Right? Always, that is the important question, is it resonant with me personally? Right? How is this supporting my design, my blueprint, my path? So then coming through the eclipse portal, that was when all of this started coming online even more clearly. And when the guidance that I was getting was, this is what you get to start working with now. This is what you get to start strengthening and learning from. So this is why I'm now passing this on to you. And that as we continue to move at quicker paces through this year and into 2026 and beyond, because everything is speeding up, like we know, and the light frequencies, right, we're being drenched with higher consciousness. And this is the key. The containers support us being able to draw in, right, and alchemize these consciousnesses, right, these light frequencies to increase our light quotient. Now, this is where it starts to become interesting, right, because when I sit down to do a video with you, Now I'm creating containers and I'm inviting in more consciously higher expressions that want to come through. Now, I've always done this, not quite as clearly, but rarely do I do any video that I'm not actually receiving a lot of downloads in the mix of it, particularly classes. But what this is doing is it's allowing me to not feel like, again, I'm doing this all alone. Like I'm the doer. I'm not the doer. You aren't truly the doer when you choose to be in co-creation with all of you, not just your egoic aspect, but all of you and beyond. And yet, we also need to be in free flow, non-contained times. But we want to use that mindfully, meaning if I'm sitting and scrolling down Facebook, right, or Instagram or whatever platforms, are being used, and if I'm sort of being sucked into that, I'm sort of in a free flow, non-energetic container, which has its purpose. But I'm also not staying present. I'm not there for a reason, right? I'm not there with intentionality. But I can change that. I can call in that intentionality and purpose. Like, this is why I want to be on this platform right now. This is my purpose. And support me, right? Create a container to hold my intention so I don't get lost down the information rabbit hole or drama rabbit hole. And then I have to remember and allow my container to support that. Now, if I'm outside in nature, where it's naturally coherent, I'm allowing the natural world to be that container, to be the vessel that holds me, and to align with the beauty and the love and the freedom and the coherence. I'm choosing the frequencies that I'm dialing into, and that becomes its own container. So if I go to a yoga class, right? If you go to a yoga class, you can go in just sort of like scattered and open and all of that, and oftentimes teachers will do this, I think, but you can create your container to bring you in, to bring you to center, to help support you from not, just winding off. I did the Sacred Pause video that I just uploaded this morning, and you can go back to it. And I loved this specific card was about the observer, and the themes, the energies of the card were patience, awareness, and focus. And so as I'm talking, I'm realizing that those qualities become part of what our containers begin to offer us, to bring us, to support us in, to uplift us, so that whatever we're doing it into its highest expression that we can access at any time. So I just want to feel into, right, the container. Is there anything else that wants to come through? And for you to feel into the container that you entered into, maybe without even knowing it. And was this purposeful for you? Did this support you, right? Did you feel like you are uplifted and that there is a value from it? These are themes that we want to start paying close attention to. What are we engaging in our life that is not grounded in what is serving our highest good? But instead we get kind of carried away with the momentum of the energies outside of us rather than creating the connection from the truths inside of us and staying in alignment with that. And choosing mindfully those things that are going to support that. And that in itself begins to introduce you to what you may desire to call forth for your containers or for your vessels, for your vehicle, right? If I'm in a process of, movement from A to B to C to D, and maybe it's over time, then I begin to feel like I'm in a vessel that's actually carrying me along, right, through the process. But it's an energetic, subtle support that is activated around me. And it is consistently able to upgrade through the higher intelligence of the divine what I need through my process as I'm in my vehicle. So I think I'm going to leave it with that. And more is no doubt going to be revealed. And I look forward to sharing more of that with you. So the next container, like I mentioned, that we're going to be creating is going to start on April 19th through the 25th. And I'm going to put the link below. And you can register there. And the other containers that I'm working with, of course, are the light language, 60-minute, intentional. What do you need? What are you needing to upgrade? What are you needing to release? What are you wanting to give life to? And those are done privately. And I will put the link below for my contact. You would contact me, and I will put also my payment links so that you can directly pay there, but I would invite you to contact me through my website as well, just so that I know I have your correct email. And I always like to correspond a little bit first, because relational intimacy, the sense, the feel and frequency that I can connect with already starts to be able to create that container for our work together. So that will be below. All right. Many blessings. Have a fabulous day, night, afternoon. Much love.